electric vehicles and reusable rockets, I think most people did not think that would happen. If you look at, say, an internal combustion engine car, it needs an electric motor and a battery just to start. So it's an incredibly complicated device, a combustion engine car. And the only reason battery cars did not take off was range. So as soon as you have something with high energy density like lithium ion, and you have now a range that matches people's needs, then there's really no need for the complexity of an electric car, of a gasoline car. So you can mark my words here, electrical output will triple. The magnitude of the energy problem that lies ahead is absolutely enormous. The solar energy is just absurdly gigantic. We have a fusion reactor in the sky that just shows up every day.
Yeah.
Why do you need to build one on the ground? That doesn't make any sense. Whatever your demand predictions are for electricity, I suspect they are too low. So in the positive AI scenario, there will be no shortages of goods and services. They will be almost free.
In this video, Elon Musk makes a number of bold predictions, explains why it's extremely obvious that electric vehicles will completely disrupt the internal combustion engine industry, but don't tell legacy automotive manufacturers who still think they're going to be making ICE vehicles beyond the end of this decade, and talks of a utopian future, providing humanity survives that long. And since it's not a given that humanity will actually make it, if you don't want to miss out, now's the time to subscribe over on Patreon and join X/Twitter to unlock a load of exclusive subscriber-only content. Best to watch those videos now, just in case of the AI apocalypse.
Well, thank you for making time for us. Hey, Elon, I want to start, first of all, has anyone ever shared with you that you're like the best combination of Henry Ford and Thomas Edison all wrapped up in one? Has that analogy been made before?
I'm not sure that exact analogy has been made. It certainly would be flattering.
Well, that's how I feel today. That's how I feel today, Elon. We're making history here together, and you're joined by hundreds of people here in San Ramon, California, but thousands of people across the globe have joined in for our conversation today. So thank you for that. We're talking a lot today, Elon, about breakthrough thinking and what it means to stand for something that you believe is possible in the face of potentially resistance. Maybe people don't think that it's possible. And I'm curious, Elon, if you can think back, when was the first time you had a thought that something was possible that no one else believed?
Well, I'm not sure that no one else believed, but because it's usually somebody that believes something, however preposterous that might be. But let's say when most people didn't believe it or didn't think it was true, obviously, I think electric vehicles would certainly put into that category. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think we can turn it up in the room a little bit louder, please.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Elon. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I wouldn't say that nobody, if we're looking at, say, electric vehicles and reusable rockets, I think most people did not think that would happen. A few did, obviously, but most people did not. For me, the technology, it seemed quite obvious from a physics standpoint. If you look at, say, an internal combustion engine car, it needs an electric motor and a battery just to start. So it's an incredibly complicated device, a combustion engine car. And the only reason battery cars did not take off was range. So as soon as you have something with high energy density like lithium ion, and you have now a range that matches people's needs, then there's really no need for the complexity of an electric car, of a gasoline car. So
thank you, Captain Obvious. Now, the embarrassing thing is, while Elon Musk got it, while Tesla got it, legacy automotive manufacturers didn't get it, and in fact still haven't got it. It stuns me. I just cannot understand how companies miss this. It's so obvious. If you understand anything about engineering, actually, that probably excludes most automotive CEOs. Okay, kind of makes sense now. But if you understand engineering, or even if you don't understand engineering, if you have a brain and it's relatively functional, all you need to do is think about this from first principles. As Elon points out, internal combustion engine vehicles are unnecessarily complicated. There are countless moving parts that don't need to be there, assuming there are batteries that can provide sufficient range. As lithium-ion batteries began to scale up, particularly in laptops, it became obvious this technology will be enough to get sufficient range for electric vehicles to completely replace the internal combustion engine vehicle. It would take time, the cost would continue to come down. The battery costs started quite high, but it was clear that they were declining over time and that this would continue. This was obvious 15 plus years ago, and I do mean obvious. No one should be surprised. When you have predictably declining costs on a technology, you can look historically and go, wow, isn't that amazing? The cost of these things is, keyword, predictably declining. Let's look into the future and consider the implications. Oh, you mean that we'll be able to squeeze more range out of these things and the battery costs will plummet? Oh, well, in that case, I think electric vehicles are the future. Apparently, obvious things aren't always obvious. With a physics-based understanding of the world, just think first principles. If there's a bunch of complicated shit in an internal combustion engine vehicle that won't need to be there in an electric vehicle, assuming the battery can provide sufficient range to meet most people's needs, does it not then follow that if you're producing a product with far less complexity, far less parts, far less things that can break, all other things being equal, should you not then be able to produce the much simpler product with much less stuff in it, less components, less parts, less everything? Would it not then follow that all other things being equal, you could produce the much less complicated product significantly cheaper than the more complicated product? Spoiler alert, yes. And this is one thing that people today, especially automotive companies, still don't get. EVs are now already at price parity with internal combustion engine vehicles. We know Tesla's Model Y now in the US. You can buy it for less than the average new vehicle in the United States. What people don't seem to appreciate, including automotive manufacturers and many consumers and a lot of investors, is that the cost declines aren't done. It's not just the battery costs, which will continue to decline predictably over time as production scales up, energy density improves and so on. We are going to see continual improvement in terms of energy density and overall cost per kilowatt hour in batteries. This won't stop. Again, key word here is predictable. The battery is still the most expensive component in an electric vehicle. But the other side of this equation, it's not just the battery that's going to get way cheaper over time. It's the product itself. There's so few moving parts in an electric vehicle. There's a lot of innovation still to happen in terms of how to manufacture these things. A lot of parts can be deleted, a lot of complexity that can be removed. And that means even more cost reductions. Once again, apparently obvious things aren't always obvious, but this is obvious as I record this, and it's been obvious for years. It's been in my Tesla valuation model since I first published it. With electric vehicles now at price parity with internal combustion engine vehicles, it's a pretty easy choice for consumers. But throughout the rest of this decade, the cost of the battery is the most expensive component in the electric vehicle, and all the other shit as well is going to continue to decline significantly. The implications of this are that by the end of this decade, consumers will be able to purchase extremely compelling long-range electric vehicles for a fraction of the price of today's average internal combustion engine vehicle. Not the same price, not a little bit cheaper, a fraction of the price. People really don't get this. And this is a key detail that has been in my Tesla valuation model from day one. By the way, if you'd like access, click the link in the pinned comment to join Patreon at the investor level and above. I have a little table in my valuation model showing each successive generation of Tesla vehicle, its base price and the average selling price. This factors in these cost declines. Since first publishing my Tesla valuation model, I had a next-gen vehicle for $25,000 US as a base starting price. That's not what it cost Tesla to produce. That's how much they sell it for, with approximately a 30% gross automotive margin. And again, from day one, please feel free to fact check me. In that same valuation model, I had a subsequent generation after the $25,000 Tesla later this decade with a starting price of $18,000. Again, that's not how much it costs Tesla to make the vehicle. That's how much they can sell it to consumers. This vehicle will be comparable in features to today's Model 3 and Model Y. It sounds absurd, but once again, it is in fact obvious if you only think. Key caveat there is you do actually have to think. So to Elon's point, the first aha moment was, these batteries, they can actually provide sufficient range. They're just pretty expensive, but the costs will keep coming down as they scale up. So eventually electric vehicles with sufficient range will actually be at price parity with internal combustion engine vehicles. And then they'll continue to become much more affordable over time. And I'm sure you guys have heard me say this a million times, at least if you're a regular viewer of the channel, but EVs are price parity today. A few years from now, they'll be significantly cheaper than a comparable ICE vehicle. By the end of this decade, a compelling electric vehicle with great range will be so much cheaper to purchase. Never mind the total cost of ownership being way lower, almost no maintenance, very economical to recharge versus refuel. It'll be so much cheaper than an ICE vehicle that consumers will literally, and I do mean this in a literal sense, will literally require brain damage. Something needs to be broken upstairs for them to even consider purchasing an internal combustion engine vehicle. Yet again, obvious things aren't always obvious. Legacy automotive manufacturers today still, at least based on their public statements, have not yet figured this out. Most legacy auto companies still intend on producing ICE vehicles at the end of this decade. No one's going to be buying them. Hypothetically speaking, imagine it's 2030 and you can buy today's Model Y for less than $20,000 US. Or you can buy an internal combustion engine vehicle with similar features, similar range, less safe, less technologically advanced, but hey, close enough. And it'll cost you $40,000. Approximately how much brain damage will you require to choose the internal combustion engine vehicle? The answer is about as much brain damage as the people currently running the world's legacy automotive manufacturers who think there's going to be consumers that are that dumb buying their vehicles. They are in for a rude awakening. Back to Elon.
You know, like a lot of people think that the origins of like my interest in electric vehicles would be environmental, but actually my concern was simply that we will run out of hydrocarbons to mine and burn. And so we need something to continue civilization, independent of any environmental issues. And we are moving at this point, I think, quite rapidly towards an electric future and towards a sustainable future. You know, I'm fairly encouraged on that front. I think it's going to happen. It is happening. You know, we can always make it go faster. That would be good. But you know, I'm not actually in favor of sort of vilifying the oil and gas industry. You know, we still obviously need that in order for civilization to function. But we should be transitioning to sustainable energy as quickly as we reasonably can. But I think, like I said, without vilifying oil and gas.
Well, and I think that really hits on some of the things we're talking about today, Elon, and the work that Tesla and PG&E are doing together. Just a couple props. As I say, I'm leading with love, but I got to show some real love for the Tesla team, Elon. You know, our partnership on our Elkhorn battery storage, 182 megawatts of power packs, put in a really smart location adjacent to the transmission system that existed from an old steam plant, really has been a perfect complement to the abundant solar that we have and the duck curve that exists. You know, we're working on all sorts of things together in that vein. I'd love to know where you think the grid is going, and where, you know, obviously you've made some really big predictions about the 3 times increase in energy demand as a result of electrification. What do you think the role of the grid is in that future?
Yeah, I mean, to be precise, like if one looks at total energy consumption globally, in very rough terms, only about a third of it is electricity. You know, and then a third of it is burnt for transport with hydrocarbon, you know, aircraft, boats, cars, and stuff, and then a third of it is for heating. So even if you assume that electricity demand is static, in order to transition to a sustainable energy future where everything is electric and sustainably electric, we need a tripling of electrical output. So you can mark my words here, electrical output will triple.
The dude's right. Obvious things are obvious, but once again, apparently obvious things aren't always obvious. Imagine Elon Musk back in 2006 saying electric vehicles are going to dominate the automotive market by the end of 2030. Most folks would have said, "You're high, Elon." Consider this round 2. Most electric utilities are still in denial, and they are not ready for what's around the corner. If only a company were out there selling generation products, shout out to solar, and energy storage products, shout out to Tesla batteries. I have a prediction. Utilities globally, who've not yet realized how much demand there will be for electricity, have not began building and buying the infrastructure, will be crawling to companies like Tesla on their hands and knees with a blank checkbook. We will pay whatever we need. We will do whatever you tell us to do. We are desperate now. It turns out demand for electricity has increased much faster than we could possibly have anticipated, and we're kind of fucked. We'd really like some big-ass batteries, and some solar would be great as well. Tesla, can you help us? To think about this from a slightly different angle, demand for battery storage products, in particular, and also solar, to generate electricity, is going to go through the fucking roof. If anyone knows any companies that happen to produce large batteries, have some software to manage energy in those batteries, and maybe even some solar products to generate a bit of electricity, let me know in the comments below. I'd definitely love to own their stock. Seems like a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity to me.
As you alluded to, because of the way that the grid has been constructed to match peak demand, there is actually excess capacity if you run the plants sort of 24 hours a day. I'm not sure. It might be as much as a 2x gain, but it's at least 50 to 100% increase in total energy output if power plants are run 24/7 versus just matching consumer demand. And obviously the reason for that is there hasn't been really, in most cases, a way to buffer energy. And what stationary battery packs like the Tesla Megapack enable is to buffer the energy. So you can essentially run the power plant at its max power output and fill up the battery pack and then use it as needed. So this effectively gives far greater output potential for the existing electricity generation infrastructure.
Yeah, and Elon, we are very excited about that. And we actually together got to do a little demonstration last summer. You'll remember we had the peak event in September of 22 here in California. And as a result of the integration with the already, I call it anyways economics, the power walls that people had purchased already in their garages across California, we delivered, well, Tesla delivered through our grid, 50 megawatts of supply in the peak hours of those peak days. And that's just a start. That was like something we thought together, and thanks to the Tesla's nimble approach and our ability to keep pace, we were able to deliver that last year. And we're continuing to do that now. In fact, last week, my power wall in my garage, you'll be happy to know, Elon, was tapped, and that was good news. We're supplying distributed storage to the grid.
In essence, what she's currently describing is a Tesla virtual power plant. A bunch of existing Tesla power walls in residences connected together via Tesla software, acting as a distributed virtual power plant, able to supply energy back when it's necessary. And in the process, of course, printing money, literally while the owners of these Tesla Powerwalls are asleep or at home or at work, doing whatever they want, passively printing money from an existing asset by participating in this virtual power plant.
What do you think the full extent of distributed storage, and particularly with the idea of bidirectional charging vehicles, Elon? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I think there's a buffering that is needed, obviously, at the power plant level, or sort of heavy industry utility level, which is the megapack. And then there's also energy buffering that is useful at the endpoint, at the consumer's home or the individual business. I think we're basically going to need to tackle this problem. Like if I leave with one message, is that the magnitude of the energy problem that lies ahead is absolutely enormous.
He's right. And in case you don't know, the world's biggest problems are also the world's biggest opportunities. Does anyone know any companies that are going to seize this opportunity by solving this massive problem? Let me know in the comments below. I might buy their stock.
It's good news for the utility industry. It's great news. People are going to use a lot of electricity, like a lot.
PG&E likes the sound of that, Elon. We like that.
Yeah. So this is for sure going to happen. So but in order to satisfy the electricity need of a fully electric transport economy and electric heating, you've got to triple output. And that's just in America. I mean, places that are industrializing like India, I think it probably is a 10x output. A friend of mine was talking to me about like some of these sort of fundamental ratios or metrics that are interesting to think about. One of them is total amount of energy per person. And you can include thermal energy and electrical energy, and how that has scaled over time is incredible. So, if you said like before the steam engine, you basically just had energy per person would be like, what can you burn with like firewood or a horse or an ox? So this is obviously not much. Now the energy, if you say like total sort of human civilization created energy is gigantic compared to the past, and that number per person is going to increase, I think, dramatically over time. This friend of mine that I referred to thinks that we may end up at some point. Well, if the trend continues, that it might end up being like a terawatt per person. And I'm not showing it. Like terawatt per person is a lot, obviously.
That'd be a lot.
So big asterisk around if trend continues.
Yeah.
But energy per person over time, it looks like a wall at the Industrial Revolution. And the same can be said for compute per person over time, digital versus biological compute. These are really interesting metrics. So basically, what I'm saying is we need to tackle this from all angles. So that's Powerwall locally. Some amount of local solar power. It just helps a little bit so that one doesn't have to expand as many substations and build as many transmission lines, which drive people crazy in like suburban neighborhoods, basically.
Yeah. Elon, I think you're talking about something really important, especially for this audience. one of our points of view that we share in our R&D document, we published an R&D document, Elon, that lists 70 key gaps from today to the future. And one of them is talking about the full utilization of our existing assets. And we have a point of view that the decarbonization of our economy at the lowest societal cost requires a much more optimized grid than exists today. And today, as you mentioned, we build the whole system for those peak hours plus 15%. And so if we can fully leverage the distributed resources on those peak hours, now the sun stops shining when the sun stops shining, and so we need a resource, and that's where Elkhorn and the mega packs and the residential power packs can play a role, as well as EVs can help to bring down that peak, and not just as we add 3 times more energy usage, not just add to the peak, but in fact, if we can add to the peak less and fill the belly of the duck, as we say, more, then we can get a more fully utilized energy grid, which could in fact be more affordable for customers. They actually could spend less on energy. What is your point of view about that? You can disagree if you want, Elon.
I think there will be price pressure on electricity, because just when you increase demand, there tends to be pricing pressure on something, on wherever it may be. But the good news is with batteries at scale, either like the mega pack, which is sort of where you do sort of gigawatt hour class battery packs, or the summation of Powerwalls at users' homes, where the Powerwalls all communicate. You can have 10,000 Powerwalls all operating together to buffer the power. This is going to be extremely helpful in increasing total electricity availability, because you have to buffer it, especially with renewables. Obviously, with wind and solar, the buffering is essential. So, if you like to say like SpaceX and Starlink satellite constellation, which is a majority of all satellites currently in operation, they're all solar battery powered. And they're in low Earth orbit, so they go through Earth's shadow. You can think of Earth as just really a big satellite. My prediction is that long-term, most electricity will be generated with solar and with a solar battery combination. The solar energy is just absurdly gigantic, with a gigawatt of solar incidence per square kilometer, roughly. Or thought of another way, when you do all the math, it sort of roughly works out to like a gigawatt hour per day, if I recall correctly, per square kilometer. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yes, we should react. Yes.
A lot.
That's a lot.
I mean, it would be a frozen ice ball at roughly 3 degrees Kelvin if it wasn't for the sun. It would be pitch dark and cold as hell.
Fortunately, it's not. Yes, right.
Fortunately, we have the sun, which is throwing off absurd amounts of energy. And it's zero maintenance, and it just shows up every day. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yes.
People always ask about, like, what do you think about fusion? I'm like, we have a fusion reactor in the sky that just shows up every day.
Yeah.
Why do you need to build one on the ground? That doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. So with that thought,
definitely solvable, but it's pointless.
So Elon, with that thought, and as you imagine the energy system of the future, what role do you think, I'm going to bring it back to just kind of practical terms here, so I'm sorry for that, but what do you think the role of the grid and a utility like PG&E is in causing that lowest cost societal transition to a decarbonized economy? What do you think our role is, and what advice do you have for us?
Well, I think generally leaning in the direction of solar and wind combined with battery storage, because of the intermittent nature of solar and wind is generally the right approach. And I think a lot of that is happening. And we see the growth of renewables in the United States and actually in most places in the world, including China, is very high. So if that trend continues, and it probably will, then I think we're headed for a good place. I would just say, whatever your demand predictions are for electricity, I suspect they are too low.
Yeah.
So I recommend.
I'm taking a note, Elon.
Much higher demand.
Yeah. So, Elon, I know you kind of have a love-hate relationship with artificial intelligence. On one hand, you love it. On one hand, it's scary. What role do you think AI has in this grid of the future and the energy system of the future?
Yeah, I would say just I'm worried about AI as it just if you've got some sort of digital super intelligence, things can go wrong potentially. It's just something we should not be cavalier about. We should be careful with digital super intelligence. Digital super intelligence may be the biggest existential risk that humanity has ever faced. So I think we need to be very careful with it. And I think we should have regulatory oversight because it is a potential danger to the public. And whenever we have something that is a potential danger to the public, we have regulatory oversight. So on the plus side, I mean, AI has the potential for creating a society of abundance. So in the positive AI scenario, there will be no shortages of goods and services. There will be almost free.
This is accurate. Assuming we survive, it's inevitable. If we're still around, humanity will enter an era of not just abundance, not superabundance, but hyperabundance, where the cost of energy is essentially zero, where the cost of goods and services falls to essentially zero, where humans no longer need to work and trade our time for income. It will take time to get there, but if we survive the next few decades, this is an inevitable outcome. And I predict a crisis of purpose at this point in time. What are we going to do when we don't need to do something for a living? Something to start thinking about now. And what happens to the value of money? It's most likely to become completely and utterly meaningless. And sooner than that, just in the next decade or two, we'll enter an era of energy superabundance where we have far more energy than we need. The marginal cost of electricity will essentially be zero. We're going to have an abundance of energy. The biggest problem will be how to use that energy. For more on this, check out some of the research by RethinkX.
It's a strange way to think about it, but I recommend reading Ian Banks' The Culture books. That's probably the best future envisioning of AI that I've seen.
Oh, good.
But yeah, digital superintelligence combined with robotics will essentially make goods and services close to free in the long term.
Yeah.
Not immediately.
This is a positive note to wrap things up on. Assuming we avoid an AI apocalypse, it's inevitable we'll end up in an AI-fueled utopia where money becomes completely meaningless. There'll be an abundance of energy, food, products, services. Everything will essentially cost nothing. And the biggest struggle humans will face is figuring out what the actual to do with our time. Good problem to have. Athletic Greens AG1 has given me a massive, meaningful boost in energy, allowing me to do a lot more every day, including using my brain more and using my body more. I highly recommend you guys and girls check it out. Athletic Greens AG1 is an excellent way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's got 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus prebiotics and probiotics and digestive enzymes and adaptogens to help you deal with stress. Plus, if you click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR, you can get yourself a 1-year free supply of vitamin D3 and K2. But don't take my word for it. Here's what some of you guys and girls have to say. AG1 has changed my life. I was, as you described, treating myself like a circus, ate like trash, rarely exercised, used alcohol as a stress crutch, cannabis also. AG1 is what gave me the kick in the ass, got me back to the gym, motivated me to do more for myself, family, my business, etc. Keep doing what you do. Now, I know there's some skeptics, the same kind of people who think Elon Musk is a fraud, reading this going, what do you thought? There's no way that's possible, bro. It must be a placebo effect. Believe it or not, this is a recurring theme. If you give your body everything it needs to feel and perform its best, including having a lot more energy, you'll need ways to use that energy. For me personally, that includes more exercise, moving my body more social activity, and more cognitively demanding tasks, including producing a ton of exclusive content over on Twitter and on Patreon, plus my daily YouTube uploads. The proof's in the pudding. On to another testimonial from a viewer of this channel. SMR, you asked me to provide feedback on AG1. Here it is. It has helped with mental acuity, stamina, and intestinal waste management. Can't read between the lines. It certainly helps with regularity and digestion. That's what the digestive enzymes are for. It has also dramatically reduced my cravings for sugar. You guys need to stop eating sugar. It's fucking poison. I'm 50, 5'9", and overweight, aka a fat motherfucker. I think that's a technical term for overweight, isn't it? Is it fat motherfucker or obese? I can't remember. I average 100 hours a week in the West Texas oil fields as a safety supervisor. Jesus Christ, dude. No wonder you're struggling to keep your weight under control. 100 hours a week. Brutal. It has helped me lose weight. It is not an appetite suppressant. It can help fat people suppress cravings, and motivation to be healthier is critical for changing your diet. Love you, brother. Again, this is a great point and something people really don't seem to grasp. If you have more energy, everything becomes easier. It's like turning on easy mode for life. A few years ago, before I was taking AG1, my health was trash. I was struggling to get through the day, had afternoon fatigue. The last thing I wanted to do was either use my brain or move my body. Didn't have the energy. Now, my biggest struggle every day is figuring out ways to use that energy. I'm exercising way more, doing a lot more with my friends and family, and of course, my work output has increased substantially. And you can fact check me. Check out the average length of my videos I was posting to YouTube 3 years ago. Need I say more? And one final testimonial. Love this one. Okay, here's the deal for me with this AG1 shit. I'm 41 years old and not the type to eat, drink, smoke, or sleep healthy, so I was skeptical. That being said, here's what I experienced. Day 1, meh. Day 2, afternoon fatigue was about 45 minutes late. Day 3, 0 afternoon fatigue. Day 4, 0 afternoon fatigue plus extra energy. Day 5, again, 0 afternoon fatigue plus energy, wondering, what the fuck, really? See, this is the thing, right? The results for many people are just almost too good to be true. This is the same experience I had. My afternoon fatigue just vanished out of nowhere. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Why am I not tired in the afternoons anymore? Surely, it's not that AG1, is it? Turns out it was. Day 6 and 7, same thing. Day 8, same thing. Plus, I had the want to get things done around the house that I normally would slack off and not get done. Again, the point, extra energy, you'll need to use it, you'll find ways to use it. Day 9, 10, and 11, and today is day 12. I fucking love it. So however you managed to get me to buy it, I'm so glad you did. Thank you so much, SMR. It really changed me so far. Guys, this shit really works. Just try it. By the way, this is the reason I continue to relentlessly promote AG1. A lot of people get real fucking mad in the comments. Oh my God, snake oil salmon sold out. Oh my God, he's a scammer. This is fraud. But constantly, I'm pretty sure everyone making these comments is also currently short Tesla stock. I'm not particularly concerned about people having a negative perception, those folks suffering from small brain syndrome, still living in my bum's basement syndrome, etc., writing mean comments, claiming AG1's a scam or it doesn't work. I mean, bro, when I get feedback like this is what keeps me going. And remember, there is a 90-day money-back guarantee. There's nothing to lose here. Just try this stuff for a month, and if you don't get these results, get your money back. See, it's a literal no-brainer. It's an IQ test at this point in time. Testimonial after testimonial after testimonial like this. Get your money back if it doesn't work. Just try it for a month, and if it doesn't work, get your money back. Today's the day. It's finally time. Be like this guy who was a massive skeptic, but finally, after 1,000 promotions in a row, caved in, tried AG1, and has results like this. Head to drinkag1.com/SMR or click the link at the pinned comment, and please, let me know how you're feeling in a few weeks' time. Now, if you'll excuse me, time to put my extra energy to good use. I'll be recording some more exclusive content for Patreon and my Twitter subscribers. So click the links in the pinned comment. See you over on Twitter and or Patreon. And don't forget to grab your AG1. Love ya.